Hello Internet, and today's video is going to be another book opinion. Those videos in which I tell you my opinion on a book, and today's book is going to be Britt Was Here by Fredrik Backman. This is a fantastic book. Before I get started on actually talking about how great this book is, I feel like I'm obligated to tell you Britt is a character in one of Fredrik Backman's other books, which is My Grandmother Told Me to Tell You She's Sorry, and that is where Britt is introduced, and you kind of learn what is the catalyst for this whole entire book and who she is as a character before you get inside her mind in this book. So if that is something like you're particular about or you're curious about, then go get that book, read that book, then come and read this book. So Fredrik Backman is a great writer. I would put this one along the lines of A Man Called Ove, which I've done a review for. I read that. So that book is about like an ordinary old man and him going through his daily life and stuff. And this one is about Britt, the 6-year-old lady who never really got a chance to go out and have like wild adventures, and now she really doesn't have much to do, so she's like, I'm going to get a job, I'm going to figure out like how to have an adventure, I'm gonna do something. Now Britt is a very particular character. She has very particular ways that she likes to do things. She might even have OCD, or like she just is very like particular. Like, you ever meet those people who like things done in a certain way, see things that need to be done or in a certain way, or actions need to be handled, and things like everything has its spot and place, and that is how things are meant to be. Britt is one of those characters. Now because of this and because of like her OCD, it makes it hard for her to become close friends with everyone, and it makes hard for people to really understand where she is coming from, because she comes across to most people as being very prissy and like very snobbish, where that's not her intentions at all, right? So like as you read this, you really get to see Britt for the character of who she is outside of what other people see her as. And I think that's very interesting when you read the previous book I mentioned, My Grandmother Told Me, because you get to see a perspective of a younger kid looking at Britt and her experience, and then how that girl slowly learns who Britt like really is as a person. So when you read from this perspective, you're like, wow, like the little girl was saying she was like this, but you actually learn Britt is not like that. She's a very kind lady. So I like this book because I like seeing that. I like seeing how she's thrust into a situation, she's trying to get a job, and all of a sudden, like, all these people are around her, and like they're not judging her for like her weird colloquialisms, her weird habits, the way that she is very particular about things, because they can see that she's a really good person. So they allow themselves to get to know her, and in turn she's allowed to get to know them, and like you get to see like what an amazing person she really is if you get to know her. And this whole town took that chance. They were like, you seem like a pretty cool person, and it really gave her a place to be herself without people constantly judging her or seeing her in the wrong light. So I love that. It's a very funny book. Like, there are some hilarious jokes going on in here, but it's also very heartwarming. Like, I love how Fredrik Backman writes, because he tends to write characters, like, it's gonna seem like cliche, but he tends to write characters that are very real. And by this, I mean, like, these people, like, they seem like they don't have the most interesting lives. Like, the most interesting thing that happens in this is a football match. Well, a soccer match, right? That's the most interesting thing that happens. And they're not having like amazing adventures with magic or something, and there's not something like horribly tragic happening at the time or like anything like that. But with Fredrik Backman, you're learning like little pieces of every character, and you're learning how like day-to-day life can be very interesting and can be an adventure in and of itself without the addition of like magic and dragons or like some supercomputer or anything like that. And I think there's a lot of value in that, to be reminded like that everyday life, that people you can meet on the street have their own stories and their own adventures, and despite not having like fantastical stuff around you all the time, you can still have like a great story to tell. And I think that's something of value that we need to remember. So I like this book and just Fredrik Backman in general. Most of his books follow along the same vein, except Beartown. Beartown is a very serious book. I wasn't expecting, but everything else is along the lines of Britt Marie Was Here, and is very fun, but also has like very poignant points that remind you like that people are people. They're not perfect, but they're not all bad either. So it's very, very fun. It's gonna like touch and pull at your heartstrings. You're gonna laugh. I don't know if you're a crier, you might cry, but I highly suggest everyone take a shot at Fredrik Backman's writing. Britt Marie, especially even if contemporary isn't one of your things, because I guarantee you, you're gonna have a lot of fun, and it's just gonna remind you that people outside your room probably aren't as terrible as you have been led to believe. A lot of them are, but not all of them, and that's what we need to remember. So I highly suggest you read Britt Marie Was Here. I highly suggest you read Fredrik Backman's other books if you can find them, and I highly suggest you listen to the audiobook if you get the chance. Like, the audiobooks done for his books are fantastic. Like, they are some of the best audiobooks I've ever heard, and especially when it comes to books like this where it's really beneficial to hear the tones of people's voices and like how they're talking to each other. It can be really beneficial, because like when you're hearing like how these people are interacting with each other, I feel like it brings new life to the story. So I would also suggest those if you're into audiobooks themselves. So if you like what you're seeing here and you want to continue seeing more, click all those bunnies down below, and goodbye, internet.